Howdy folks, how we going? We're out at the brewery, Extractaganza number 19. And we're going back to sort of old school in a sort of bit of a way. Doing this fella, hard lemonade from Mangrove Jacks. This is their lemon and lime hard seltzer kit. They've got a couple of different variations. I think there's a strawberry and maybe a pineapple. Could be more, I'm not sure. I just grabbed this cheap when the local Mitre 10 was closing down. So this is fairly basic. I'm going to be putting this together as per the instructions completely. But then when we get to the end, I'm going to fiddle a little bit with how we go about doing it. But the main thing I want to look at with this one just simply is what sort of a seltzer do these kits make? Because I think if they do a decent job, then there's an awful lot of possibilities on how you can play with these things. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the kit. We get some instructions. As I said, they're fairly straightforward. I think if you didn't know what you're doing, you could get away with this without too much trouble. They're not too obscure. But in the packet we get a couple of kilo of our sugar blend, which is obviously going to be our base for our seltzer. Then we get a few other packages as well. Now what we get is this fella. This is Kessel salt, which is findings, which we only use according to instructions if we're kegging, which I plan on doing. We've got some sweetener, which we will need. We have some lemon and lime flavouring. It's just a little bloody tiny patch of this stuff. So I've read comments when I first put up on Facebook a couple of weeks back that I was doing this shortly about the flavouring being quite light and not really strong enough, but that's, again, I said something we'll play around a little bit with down the track. We got some liquid findings, which obviously are for finding, and again I think they're only if you're actually kegging, but we'll look at that down the track a little bit. That's not really to worry about right now. And we get this pack of hard seltzer yeast and nutrient. So it's both of them together, so it's just a single pitch. So pretty straightforward. Anyway, so let's have a look at the instructions. Now it's telling us we're going to get a starting gravity of 1028 to 1032, which what we're going to look at, well, that's pretty low, but this is also going to get down to 1002 or even lower. It's going to finish fairly dry, and the kit's telling me we're going to get about 4% ABV. And I assume from those numbers that's going to be in the bottle with some carbonation. So with kegging we might go a little bit, it might be a little bit under that. So that's something you might need to look at if you're looking for something a little bit stronger. But given that the seltzer is really designed to be one of those drinks you can just slurp on during a hot day. You can have a few of them without worrying too much about getting too pissed out of your head. So a bit light doesn't hurt. But, all things homebrew, it doesn't take much to bloody up that a little bit. But anyway, instructions say stage 1, ferment. Let's go. Clean and sanitize your fermenter. Done. The lid and the mixing paddle. Done that. They recommend their own stuff, but as long as it doesn't really matter. So that's done. Stand the liquid sugar pouch in hot water for 30 minutes to soften it up, which I've done. Open the pouch and pour the syrup into the fermenter. Squeeze out all the remains. If there is any sugar remaining, carefully rinse out a small amount of hot or just boiled water and pour this into the fermenter. It then says, add 1 litre of boiling water to the fermenter and stir with sanitised sanitised paddle. Now, that's fine if you're using a standard fermenter, but because I'm using, in this case, the Keg King Snub Nose Apollo, If I put boiling water in there, it's gonna fucking melt. A la Cornelius, good mate of Pierre over there at Simple Home Brew. And if I think about it, I'll stick a link down the bottom to the video I'm referring to, where he does melt the bejesus out of a PET fermenter. So I've put in here about 5 litres all up. It's a mix of tap water and boiling water, just to make sure I've got some warm water to help mix. But it's not hot enough to melt the fermenter. So anyway, we get this sugar blend in, and I'm just interested in the Could have might have been a little sweeter than what it is, but anyway. Just throw a little bit of water in there. There's nothing really sticking to this one. It's not like a beer kit where it's all sticky and gooey, but it won't hurt to get as much of that out of there as we possibly can. Yeah, and in she goes. It says to stir well with sanitised paddle. Here's me sanitised paddle. Let's give that a mix. Now, assume like every bloody brew, we want to get some aeration in here. So that's underway. Now it says top up with cold tap water till it reaches 20 litres, or 5.3 US gallons. Oh, US gallons. US gallons. I don't know what you're referring to as gallons. Anyway, and again it's a temperature between 18 and 26. So with the magic of the fast forward button, let's fill this up. Now, I would suggest, if you're doing this seriously for yourself at home, spend a little bit of money and get some good spring water, some RO water, get some clean water. I like the Tasmanian mountain spring water from Woolies. It's nice. That's what I'd be using on this. And that's just to avoid any chlorine or, you know, crappy fucking nuts you might get from your tap water. Alternatively, just leave your water out bloody overnight beforehand, let the oxygen bleed off. But if you've got chloramine, that's not going to bleed off overnight. So when I did the seltzer from scratch, I used the spring water, the mountain water, made sure it had a nice clean base to start with. Because there's nothing to hide that weird flavour from the water if it causes an issue. With the mixing, it shouldn't need too much mixing because I'm using tap water. It's getting oxygenated as I'm pouring it. It's not being deoxygenated through a boiling process. So you don't have to go stupid with it. Oh no, that's 20 enough litres. Yeah, maybe a tiny fraction over, but good enough. Alright, so I said once 18 to 26 degrees is our target temp. My little sticky gauge here says she's sitting maybe 27. So it's a fraction warm. I'm not too worried. I'm gonna pitch. I'm gonna pitch on that, no problem. It's gonna go straight into the temperature controlled ferment chamber, so I think that's too much of an issue. So temperature, it says it's too hot, stand the fermenter in a bath of icy water to cool it down. Add the contents of the yeast and nutrient and sweetener sachets. Stir to mix. Okay. Yeast and nutrient. And she be. And sweetener. Sweetener, which was this fella? Hard seltzer sweetener, 2 grams thereof. 2 grams, I don't know exactly what this is going to be, but it's going to be some sort of artificial bloody carry-on, no doubt. It's a light, sugary looking, get up, we'll get it in there. Now, do we need it? Do we really want it? I don't know, but we're putting it in. And that tells me to. Stir to mix. And that we do. Wonderful. Done. No? It's easy so far. Fit the airlock and grommet to the fermenter lid. Well, I'm not airlock and grommeting because we're running with the pressure fermenter. So probably should have had this put back together. I take the liquid hose off every time after a ferment with these just to make sure they get cleaned properly. Unless I'm going through the bucket blaster, in which case I don't worry, but this one hasn't gone with the bucket blaster. We usually hit a sanitizer just to be sure. We've got the firmer well in there as well. And we'll get all that in there. Lid on. Get our collar on. And we'll stick our spondy on here because we're not using a airlock. On the gas side. And I'm going to stick this in the fridge. I'm going to stick it in the fridge at 18. It says fit the airlock and grommet, secure the lid, half fill your airlock, blah blah blah. Leave for 7 days at 18 to 26 degrees or until the airlock stops bubbling for 48 hours. Now, today is Friday. Week and a bit before Christmas. So next Wednesday we're going away for Christmas. So this is not likely to be finished at that point. So I'm going to let pressure build up on this to about 15 psi. I'm going to leave at 15 psi. I'm going to go at the lowest end of the ferment temperature, and I'm just going to let this run until I get back from holidays, which is going to be about the 5th or 6th of January. So this is going to run for a good 3 weeks, possibly even longer, before I get back to it. So I'm not too concerned about this after 7 days when the airlock has stopped bubbling to check the specific gravity using a hydrometer. Should be between 0.998 1.002. If your SG isn't within this range, leave to ferment a few more days before checking again. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. I think she'll get done in that bloody 3+ weeks. It's going to sit there. But that's it. So that's where we're going. The next step for this is to add flavouring, which happens once fermentation is complete. So we're going to look at that when we get there. So we put our notes away there. We put our flavouring back in the box, our key of salt, and our findings, because we're going to need them on a later date. As long as a dickhead like me doesn't throw the box out in the meantime, we're all good. Hopefully that won't happen. But anyway, like I said, going to get this into the fridge, 18 degrees, let the pressure come up and stabilise it. I'll stabilise that at 15 psi, let it run. So I'll see you shortly, in a few weeks time, we see how this is looking, and we'll get on with the process. Rightio. We've hit the 11th of January. So this fella's been going since the 16th of December. Now, by the instructions, once she's finished, we're meant to put the flavouring into here, this fella, this massive amount of flavouring, which seems inconceivable that's possibly going to flavour 19 litres, but it says that it's going to. I have seen reports where people have said that that's a little bit light on, but anyway, we'll get to this. So you might just put this in and give the fermenter a really good mix and knock any gas out of it, then leave it for 24 hours and then continue on. Okay, so normally that's what you do. If you're playing along at home, that's what you do. Stick that in, give it a mix up, let it sit for 24 hours, and then you proceed with however you're going to go ahead. Now, given that this has now been sitting for the best part of a month, well, 16, 11, it's probably like 3.5 weeks, it's sort of dropped out, it's finished its thing. I've given it a cold crush, and I've decided I'm not going to bother with the clearing methods that they're saying here. So just to recap those, for those who I said who are going to go along, put that in 24 hours later, you just go ahead and bottle as per normal. Now they're suggesting 3 carb drops per long neck, because obviously it's a spritzy sort of a drink. You want a little bit more carbonation than what you do for a normal beer, so you're going for those 3 drops. Do your bottles up, and they're saying let them sit for 14 days and condition to carb up, which gives it time to clear. It's fairly clear, but it's not crystal clear, which is where that's the aim for the seltzer. And right now I'm really not that concerned about it being crystal clear, but that's the target. So you go along and you bottle as per normal, let it condition it, and then you're drinking. After doing this flavour addition waiting 24 hours, if you're kegging, at this point, after the 24 hours, they're saying to add the Kiesel salt, give that a good stir, and again to knock out any bloody gas. You let that stand for an hour and then add the chitosan. Give it a little bit of a stir through and let that sit for 3 days. Now that clearly is going to drop all this stuff out. Now the reason I would assume that you're doing these findings if you go into the keg is that, one, you're going to be drinking the keg certainly a lot quicker. So that'll make sure it's nice and clear. Where if you go into the bottle, it's going to condition for a couple of weeks. It's going to have time to settle naturally. Given that they're suggesting the set and forget pressure setting for kegging, it's almost irrelevant because you're going to do that anyway. But that's what they recommend. But I'm not doing that. I've cold crashed this overnight. It's down to about 3 degrees. I'm going to go straight to the keg.
if there is anything left to drop out, it's going to drop out. It's going to drop out in the keg anyway. And like I said, I'm not worried if it's not crystal clear. That doesn't bother me. So these now getting rid of. I'm going to keep the chittersen. I'm going to use that to brew down the track in a beer, because I've never actually used chittersen before as a finding. So there you go. So at this point, we can pretty much ignore those instructions. But I've got my keg. But what I'm doing is I'm only going to put, see, it's only a 9 litre keg. I'm going to put 9 litres into here with some flavouring. Because I want to see how this actual flavouring goes. Now the keg turns out, because that's, you know, obviously part of what we do with Extractaganza. And the other half, I'm just going to bottle into longneck. Got me a carton of Cooper's PET bottles. They're all cleaned and ready to go. And I'm just going to take the remaining 10-ish litres with the beer gun and fill them bottles just straight with plain seltzer. And that'll give me plenty of option then to play around with other cordials. I've got a bunch of stuff here which will work along and will actually taste and we'll play around with. But for now, I'm going to get this happening. So I want half of this sachet. Now, common sense is they just cut it in half. That's not going to fucking work, is it? So we're going to roughly pour, you know, half of that in. It smells like lemon and lime anyway. I'm going to go just a little heavy-handed. I'm happy enough that that's maybe 60% of what was there. I don't want to go bloody silly, because I don't want to... Jesus, okay, that's fucking pretty savage on its own. Oh, that is savage on its own. Crikey, I thought it'd be a bit strong, but Jesus. Okay, that's pretty intense by itself, so... But there's a lot of liquid to go in there. So something new for Extractaganza. I'm going to get this keg bloody set up just quickly. I'm not going to go through the bottling process. I'm just going to get this started, and we'll skip the tasting. Got my gas bottle down here. Now, I've pressure fermented this to 15 psi, so we'll get good gas straight into the keg, and it's going to be pretty close to serving. And what I'm going to probably do is just have this at gas. It's going to be pretty much at, you know, beer carbonation, because I haven't got the setup just at the moment to run one single keg at a higher pressure. So for now, it's just going to run with, you know, beer gas, so about 14 psi, which that'll be fine. Actually, what I'll do once this is full pump, I'm going to take, actually I'll take this to about 8 litres, so that'll leave me a bit of headspace, and I'll jam about 40-45 psi CO2 into that headspace, and then let that soak that up and give us a little bit extra carbonation. So I want to just purge this keg for now. You can smell that bloody flavouring, so that'll do that. I'll get gas onto there just in case I need a little bit to push, which, you know, might need just a little bit. And yeah, on here. Angle right now. just bled that line through, so it's full, so I'm not going to bring any oxygen over, and obviously oxygen is not the issue with seltzer as it is with beer. They're happy for us to let's go to the beer post instead of the gas post. Again, the oxygenation is not an issue. I said they wanted us to bloody knock the gas out anyway. Had that, I just stuck the gas, the beer line, the line in onto the gas bloody post. Not really paying enough attention. Had that been beer, I would have had to fucking empty the keg and flush it and start again. But that's all good as it is. So righto. So she's underway. So let that go. So I said 8 litres in here of pretty much the batch out should be done. The rest will go in the bottles, get that done, and I'll be back with you shortly, which will be a couple of weeks away for tasting. I will drop 1 carb drop into each of these bottles just for some extra carbonation, because it's 15 psi ish in there. 1 carb drop should get me a nice little fizz. So, see you soon. Righto, tasting day. I've got a bit of stuff here, I don't know how much you can see. A couple extra glasses here, a couple of bottles, glass there. So, just quickly, this is the keg version, half of done with the keg. Final gravity on this was 1002. And just sort of, it got a good cold crashing, went to the keg, didn't use the findings, as per the instructions, as I explained with that extended period, so you normally would have done that. You're doing under a normal time frame because of the extended cold crash, and as you can see, it's quick. It looks like bloody. It looks like water. These two are the other half a batch, which I've just bottled plain. So there's no flavouring in this. This is purely alcoholic sugar water, fizzy alcoholic water, alcoholic soda for essentially, that I can then flavour myself. This is one I want to play around with. This is a big side of obviously doing half of what we're doing. But initially, let's go with this fella. This is the kit. As I said, made as per the instructions, with possibly a fraction extra of the flavouring. But I said, not using the findings. But I've had a few drinks of this. Now, she's nice and clear. It's got a very faint lemony, limey nose. There's not much nose there at all. This isn't overly gassy, again, because it's been the keg. It's only been kegged. It's only been carbonated really at bicarbonation. I'm expecting these bottles to be a little bit gassier because they were bottled or same with a little bit of carb drop added, again as I've discussed previously. But anyway, let's have a taste on this. And it's not bad. Yeah, it tastes like, flavoured, soda water, flavoured mineral water. It's lightly flavoured. There's not much flavour going on. And as I've commented previously, during the preparation and getting it set up, that was a comment that had been made a couple of times. And I certainly agree with that the flavouring is a little bit light on. But at the same time, there's enough there that's got something in it. There's enough there to give it a little bit of interest. There's not a lot. So I would certainly say if you're going to make it yourself, if you're going to go on one of the flavours, to do it as is and then leave it. You can adjust, down the track now, which is partly now what I'm going to do. But as is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's reasonable. It's fairly clean. I don't think it's super clean, but I think the extended ferment and the extended cold crash hasn't hurt it, and I would assume that the Kisa Sol and the Chitta Sand would have done much the same sort of thing. But there's no real yeasty nose on it, no real yeasty flavour. And when I'd done the batch from scratch, and I'll put a link up so you can go back and look at that, I did get a little bit of a yeasty sort of a note. With that being said, I did not use a proper seltzer yeast. I used, I think my memory used EC 111A champagne yeast, which is fairly neutral, but certainly not as clean as a yeast could be for this sort of thing. But now, the other side of this is, how does this go just as a straight base that you can use to play around with your own stuff? Now this is, again, I did this on the previous batch that I did myself, and I played around with a few different flavours. So let's see how this goes. I'm pretty confident it's going to work out all right, but let's see. I want to see firstly if this stuff goes all right clean, and how it goes with the carbonation in the bottle, because we now got an amount of crud in there, so I don't know how that's going to affect the bottle, but let's see. And these are fairly firm. Okay, so, well, I haven't gone silly, but there's a bit of carb there. Okay. Straight away I got as soon as I bloody released that gas, I got a sulphury sort of a nose. I got rotten egg type of note. Which, it's going to be a little bit off-putting. I'm just going to lighten up, I think, once it's breathed a little bit. But it's not a nose, certainly not a nose that you really want to get. And again, she's good in gas. She's nice and clear. Okay. Actually, that's probably got a fairly similar flavour to that batch I made. It's not. Actually, if anything, the flavour seems to be coming from the carbonation. It's like a creamy mouthfeel from all that gas. There's still got that bit of a nose, but The flavour is not over the top. It's not savage. There is a little bit of a note there. The big thing's going to be, see, how does that go when you're mixing it with something else? Now, I've got several options here, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but what the bottles here just, for suggestions on things you can do. And most of these things I've played around with between, this type of dispatch and the free dispatch. But one that works well is the Bigfoot's cordial. This stuff is good quality. It's not cheap. I think by memory they're about $6 a bottle. You use a bit of it, but in the big picture it still works out fairly cheapish. So one of my faves is the lemon lime and bitters. Now I've played with this with the keg version, where I've added just a little bit extra lemon and lime to pick that up, and I've used that as a base for a bitters, and it works quite well. And certainly that will be play around and get the levels that you like yourself. Then fantastic, they're good to work with. Lemon lime bitters, it's popular. I don't mind one on a hot day sometimes, just for something different when you don't necessarily feel don't feel like a beer or whatnot. Other ones that work well are these Schweppes bottles. I got these at Woolies. These make 3.3 litres, so this is basically a 1 in 10 mixing ratio. So a shot of that, this is a 360ml glass, basically a shot of that, fill it up, and you're getting pretty close to full, a normal strength, soft drink you'd be buying off the shelf. Only difference is it's going to have some alcohol in it. And I've done these before, and they're pretty good. So got 3 glasses here. Let's make a couple of drinks. I've done the lemonade. I've done solo as well, which works really nice lemon squash. So we'll go about a shot of that, and we'll go. The Schweppes lemon lime and bitters. Let's give this a bit of a shake. So this is ready to go, made up. Same thing. Shot of that in there. When I bottled this, I made up, when I was kegging it, I made up a glass with the Buddha and ginger refresher. It wasn't too bad, but I'm not going to make that today, because what I'm going to do is I want to actually make a lemon lime and bitters. So for me, this sort of ratio, and again, if I was doing this, generally I would use the keg base. But let's just work on the assumption that we've only got plain base, lemon lime, good splash of yellow bitters in there. Don't be shy of your bitters. But again, that's personal preference. Always check with someone how much bitters they really like before you go charging it into a glass. Then let's put a little cube of added refreshment and get them going. So what we're looking at alcohol wise, well, I'm a little bit carried away there. The keg version sits around 3.7%. Stop that because we're getting that yeast stir up in the bottom, and this is why I'd rather go with a keg for this sort of thing, because you want to keep this nice and clear. So 3.7 in the keg. I added 1 carb drop into each bottle. Now the instructions say to use 3 if you're going from scratch, but because I already had carbonation in there, I went with the one because I didn't want to go too silly. And it's, you can see particularly in the clear one, it's got a nice nice level there. The Mangrove just destroyed that bloody coaster. But anyway. So that's lemon lime bitters. It's a little bit stronger, probably a bit more lime juice in there than they might normally go. But anyway, lemonade. That's like drinking a normal lemonade. It's, again, there's that tiny little bit of flavour, sitting there, but it's really, it is minimal, and it's certainly no more than a little bit of a flavour that you might pick up, like I say, in a cheaper soft drink anyway. Maybe not a full brand version. So not a real issue. So these work at about 3.9%. By the time you allow for the dilution of the cordials, you're probably sitting about 3.5% ABV as they're served. So, pardon me, they come as a mid-strength, so you can have a few leisurely ones without getting yourself too messed up. You could also pull this down a little bit by going to 21 or 22 litres and pull it down to somewhere around 3%, keep it really friendly. So this is the Schweppes Lemon Lime Bitters. Look, that's really nice. Look, that's just so easy. It'd be so easy to drink on a hot day. Just, throw one of the little party umbrellas in there and bloody Bob's your uncle. Now these two, and I said the Solo was the same. There's a Sunkist. There might even be a Mountain Dew. The Mountain Dew, I think the Mountain Dew comes in the Soda Stream mixes, which is bigger ones. But they're also an option to go, those sort of things. They come in juices and stuff. I've done the juices on the old batch, and they work really well. But these are sugar free, and a lot of the Soda Stream ones are sugar free as well. So you're getting a fairly reasonably low carb sort of a drink. These Bigfords cordials, they're they're full sugar. There's no holding back on these things. They're they're about 85 calories per serve, so still not massive, but it's going to add up. But certainly nothing compared to these fellas, which are some in the vicinity of about 8 calories per serve. So you can drink those fairly guilt-free. There might be 30 calories of actual alcohol in a glass, so you can have probably 4 of these low sugar ones for the same as a normal one. So that's good value. Now this is the homemade LLB. Again, that's a different to this because it doesn't have the sweetness that this has, so it's a bit more bitter. But again, that's the case that you can mix it yourself and do what you want to do. But yeah, that's made free. Very easy to drink alternatives to beer, options that you can provide your guests, options you can have for yourself, whichever way it is. It doesn't matter, but it's an alternative. Now, going back to that now, the actual keg version of the real thing, it's even more lacking now when with these, because these have got way more flavour. So for me, that probably does fit more into the standard commercialised version of a seltzer, because it is that little bit bit less sweet and a bit bitier. Getting on this side of things, you're certainly leaning into, you know, more into the alcohol pop bloody sort of vibe. So it's going to depend on what you're after, yeah, on how you go. But it certainly shows there's lots of options and ways you can use these kits. It's a more expensive way of doing it, using the kit, than doing it yourself. But it's very straightforward. You've seen it. It's simple. Mix it up. Same as a kit. Yeah, throw it in, mix it up, put the yeast on, let it do its thing. I think for me, certainly worth the extra week and a half if you've got it to just cold crash your fermenter and not worry about all those finings, those extra stuff. I think they're extra steps which I think are not necessary if you've got the time, and still give you a really good product. So yeah, for me, it's a thumbs up. I mean, I've always been wary of these kits. I thought they'd be pretty ordinary, but I'm surprised. It's not that bad. It's certainly yeah, good and drinkable, and at around, I think the pack is about $35. So even with, well, there's nothing added to that. That's straight up. That $35 is all you need. Everything's in the box you need. So you pull this side where you're using it just as a straight base and you're not adding the flavouring, then you're going to add a little bit of cost because you need your cordials. But even so, you're still looking at somewhere around $50 for the equivalent of 2 cartons of seltzer. And given that I think you're looking at about $25 for a 4-pack, somewhere in the vicinity of $65 to $70 for a carton, you're saving an absolute buttload of money. And like I said, you serve that up to people. Gonna be no problem. If that's a little bit sweet, and it would be a little bit sweet for some people, pull back your ratios. And that's the beauty of mixing it up as you go. You can adjust it to your own preference, exactly how you like it. But for me, you know, that's just a simple, easy summer drink. And I get, we're coming to the end of summer, but take this knowledge, load yourself up ready for next summer. All you people who live north of the fucking 32nd parallel, anyone who lives north who doesn't have a winter, yeah, crack at it. That's it, guys. Extractaganza 19, Mangrove Jacks, hard seltzer. There's several different flavours. This is the lemon and lime. Worth having a crack if you're looking for something different. If you like your seltzers, yeah, flavoured alternatives to beer, go for it. Certainly worth it. So, shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for your support. This makes these things happen. Links down the bottom if you're interested and have a look at what Patreon's about. Subscribers, thank you. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button down there in the bottom. Get notified when there's new videos. You don't miss anything. And if you like what's going on, give me a thumbs up. But other than that, if you've got any questions or any comments, stick them down the bottom as always. But for now, that's me, Little John. I'm out of here. But until I see you again, we're brewing beer, drinking beer or talking beer, or things that aren't quite beer, good brewing.